Hello, we're diving into Chapter 3 of Jane Eyre Summary and Analysis. In Chapter 3 of Jane Eyre, things get spooky, emotional, and oddly comforting all at once as we dive into Jane's recovery after the whole terrifying Red Room episode. It's like waking up from a nightmare only to find yourself surrounded by strangers who oddly feel safer than the people you know. Let's break it down with some flair. Main idea: Jane's recovery from the Red Room shock introduces her to a brief moment of care and compassion, something rare in her life at Gateshead, and marks a turning point where we see her internal resilience beginning to shine. Supporting points and evidence. After her traumatic experience, Jane wakes up to the comforting presence of Mr. Lloyd, an apothecary, and the usually harsh Bessie, who suddenly becomes tender and even kind. Jane feels a sense of relief, knowing someone outside of her cruel family is watching over her. Mr. Lloyd plays a pivotal role here, as his compassionate approach contrasts with Mrs. Reed's coldness. He checks on her, making sure she's well cared for, offering a glimpse of the tenderness she craves but rarely receives. Important examples and details. The firelight in the room. The glowing red from the fire contrasts with the darkness of Jane's mental state, symbolizing both warmth and lingering fear. It sets the mood for Jane's heightened sensitivity after her Red Room ordeal. Mr. Lloyd's questions. When Mr. Lloyd engages with Jane, he actually listens, a rare thing in her life. Their conversation is important because it shows Jane's honesty and how deeply she feels the neglect and loneliness she's enduring. She opens up about her misery, revealing that she's not just a pettish child upset about missing a carriage ride, but genuinely heartbroken by her situation. Key events and plot points. Jane wakes up from her faint, comforted by Mr. Lloyd's presence. Bessie, typically strict, shows a softer side, offering Jane food and a tart, though Jane is too upset to eat. Mr. Lloyd questions Jane, realizing the depth of her unhappiness, which leads to his suggestion that Jane might benefit from being sent to school. This is a huge moment, as it sparks the possibility of change for Jane, a way out of Gateshead. Significant characters and their roles. Jane Eyre. Our girl is dealing with some major emotional fallout here. She's not just a scared child, she's grappling with big feelings of isolation, fear, and sadness. Yet, despite it all, we start to see her quiet strength, her determination to express her pain, even when no one else seems to care. Mr. Lloyd, he's not just a healer of the body, but someone who recognizes Jane's mental and emotional suffering. His role in suggesting that Jane should go to school opens the door to her future independence. Bessie, while she's usually stern, we get a glimpse of her more human side, and it's heartwarming. Her tenderness, though fleeting, feels monumental to Jane, who's starved for affection. Concluding remarks. By the end of the chapter, the wheels are set in motion for Jane to leave Gateshead. This chapter is like a calm before the storm, where Jane experiences a brief reprieve from her suffering, but knows more challenges lie ahead. The idea of going to school becomes a beacon of hope for her, even though she's unsure of what it will actually entail. Themes and sentiment. Chapter 3 oozes loneliness, but also offers a sliver of hope. The overwhelming sadness Jane's palpable, especially when even simple pleasures like her once beloved copy of Gulliver's Travels no longer bring joy. Yet, through Mr. Lloyd's care and his suggestion of school, there's the underlying theme of escape and possibility. It's a chapter that leaves you feeling both heartbroken and optimistic. What I found most exciting, honestly, what hit me the hardest, was how Jane, even at such a young age, understands her own despair so deeply. Her conversation with Mr. Lloyd, where she admits to crying out of misery and not childish pettiness, is both heartbreaking and powerful. Charlotte Bronte is showing us that Jane's struggles aren't just about physical punishment or being told off, they're about feeling deeply unwanted and unloved. And the fact that Jane, at such a tender age, can articulate this so clearly? Goosebumps! Final thoughts. Jane Eyre Chapter 3 sets the tone for Jane's inner world and her emotional resilience. It's like watching the first spark of fire in her heart, where despite all the sadness and oppression, she clings to her self-worth and dreams of something more. Bronte wants us to feel Jane's pain, but also her uncrushable spirit. You can't help but root for her, even when the world seems so bleak. If you haven't fallen in love with Jane by now, you will soon. Trust me. Join the conversation. Share your thoughts on how Jane's experiences resonate with you in the comments below. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for more juicy book discussions, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on all things literary. Let's get lost in the world of Jane Eyre together.